Hi again, it's Jason from Fraser Valley Rose Farm. Now I love annuals because they give you that long season of bloom, but perennials because they come back year after year. But isn't there a way I could get the best of both worlds? And I think there is if you choose perennials that either bloom over a long period or will rebloom if you cut them back, and anyway have other special features that make them interesting in the garden all year long. So then you can have something that has a long season of interest and comes back year after year in your garden and even gets better over time. So I've chosen 10 perennials in this video that I'm going to highlight that do exactly that. Well, I love old-fashioned bleeding hearts, and I'll show you some pictures here as much as the next guy, but the problem with them is as soon as the going gets tough, if the soil moisture goes down, they get too much heat, they go absent in the garden. So I like something like this. This is new breeding in bleeding hearts, and this is sort of the frilly-leaved bleeding heart, so it gives them great ornamental value all the way through the season. You can see that this one is already starting to send some blooms. I'll get you a close-up of that and some pictures from last year where this one was just a superstar in the garden. Dark red hearts, long bloom period, all the way from, I've got this starting bloom now in April, but it's going to be through May, June, and July probably as well. And even once the blooming stops, you have this gorgeous foliage. This one is surprisingly tolerant of sun and stays active all the way through the season, giving you that grayish foliage for an accent in the garden. My butterfly weed is just coming out of dormancy now, so I can't really show you much in the pot, but later in the summer it has these beautiful orange blooms, and these are the favorites of bees, butterflies. It is the host plant of the monarch butterfly. This is Asclepias tuberosa. It also comes in Asclepias incarnata, which is a taller plant that has showy pink flowers or white flowers, but the orange one has my heart. It is just a fantastic plant. Blooms in midsummer, and then if you cut it back, it'll bloom in late summer again. Next up on my list is Nepeta or Catmint, and I have two different pots here from two different varieties just to show you what kind of variation there is in the form and habits here. The one on my right hand here is called Kit Kat. That one's going to grow rather low, whereas this one's called Blue Dragon. You can see it's reaching for the sky. It's going to have big, bold flowers. Usually these come in a color range of either white, light blue, blue, sometimes pink, just like their cousins in salvia and lavender. And I can recommend all of those as well, but this is the one that I picked because Nepeta edges them out in terms of being a really, really vigorous repeat bloomer. If you deadhead them quickly, you'll get blooms all the way through the summer. Also has nicely scented foliage and is just a super strong garden performer. So I would say that look no further than Catmint if you want a perennial that acts like an annual in the garden. Well, here's another one that isn't going to look like much in the pot, but this is Monarda, and trust me, later on in the season, this is a showstopper, producing tubular flowers that hummingbirds love in double and triple decker fashion on the plant. Tends to come in shades of red, pink, and purple, and it is the king of cut and come again. If you take down those flowers after they've bloomed, you'll promptly get more color in the garden. Tends to spread over time in the garden, so you can either grow it in a container or just be aware of its spreading tendencies. This is a cultivar called Fireball, which is in a strong pink, almost red. Well, talk about ready to rumble. These ones are just coming up from dormant bare root and automatically straight back into flower. This is Brunnera macrophylla. Jack Frost is the cultivar. I'll give you some pictures of this in the garden because really this fact that it wants to get ahead of everything and bloom early is just one of its wonderful qualities. The foliage is fantastic. It has this sort of silvery marbling across the surface that keeps it looking good all the way through the season, and when it starts to look a little bit tired, you just give it a cutback, a little bit of feeding, and it comes back in full force to show that again and again in the garden. Another classic choice for long season color in perennials is the Shasta Daisy, and before you write these off as those basic white daisies with yellow centers, they've done a lot with the breeding to address having more interesting bloom forms, including the one I featured on this channel last year called Coconut, which has kind of fringed petals and lots of petals in there. They've also done a lot to address the fact that they tend to grow tall in the garden. Old Becky would be like 3 to 4 feet, but there are newer ones like Madonna that might be even down to 18 inches or 2 feet tall. So it's definitely evolved, but they also are just known for long season color. As soon as they get the day length that they need to start blooming, you can cut them back again and again and again, and you will get lots of daisies all the way through the rest of the season. Next perennial I'm highlighting here is called Geum, and this is a cultivar called Koi, and you can see that it hardly even took a break over the winter. I guess this kind of climate's winter is no problem for it. It went into bloom straight away and will continue blooming all the way through the season if I cut it back. Cool thing about Geum is that it comes in a range of very hot colors for perennials, in that orange, red, coral, almost a tropical looking range, which is belies their hardiness for sure. Well, I'm going to go so far as to say that Sedum, or stonecrop as you see here, is unrivaled in its long season interest. I'll give you some pictures from around the garden as well, because what you'll see is that it comes up with a wide variety of different foliage size, shapes, and colors. It's a large and varied group, but some things it has in common. It tends to be very cold tolerant or cold hardy, and it also has lots and lots of blooms that bees love all the way through the summer. And then some of these taller varieties, and like Autumn Joy is one of the very well-known ones, but this one is called Carl, which is just a little more vibrant in my opinion. But they also hold those flower heads all the way through the winter, lending architectural interest to the garden late in the season. Let me throw in a picture of this split rail fence area during the growing season, because the plant that stops everyone cold and they ask, what is that? It's Agastache, and it's not even a brand new cultivar. This is Blue Fortune, one of the old standards in Agastache. One thing that's cool about it is, once again, that if you cut it back promptly after blooming, before it starts turning more dusky in the or faded in the flowers, it will bloom again and again in the garden. Attracts all sorts of bees. It has nicely scented foliage. It's generally healthy and pest-free, and there are other varieties in different colors. I featured on the channel that I'm going to be growing a variety called Ambrosia this year, which has just far more tropical looking colors, so I'm looking forward to that. My final pick is Heuchera, and this is on the strength of its foliage. And of course it's been winter here, so this looks kind of brownish, but actually you can still see the marbling quite nicely here. In our climate, it's another one of these ones that barely even takes a break before it starts pushing brand new growth, as you're going to start seeing down in here, that it's starting to push that freshly marbled foliage. Now, it isn't just the colorful and marbled foliage of Heuchera that I will show you pictures of here, but also the fact that it does throw up coral bells. Those are the flowers partway through the season. The whole group, it's Heuchera, Heucherella, and Tiarella, and they have flowers that come in usually in red through white, foam-looking flowers. Fantastic. So you get lots and lots of season out of your Heucheras. That is the end of my list, and it is no surprise I'm a perennial guy that I think perennials offer an outstanding value, unparalleled by annuals, insofar as they offer that color early in the season, oftentimes when it's still cool, that they offer a long season of interest, particularly with these 10 that I offered, but so many more, and then also that they come back year after year, oftentimes in a clump that is larger and more impressive than the year before, instead of you having to go back to the store and buy new annuals. So I hope that opened your eyes to some new possibilities. And if you have any questions about perennials, I grew them for a number of years professionally, drop those into the questions below the video and I'll see what I can do to help.